Welcome to my channel where creepy things happen in cars. This is our He Knew My Route Before I Did. Our next Reddit post is from Disco Potato. I was a college student who had just gotten back from spring break. My friend group were all about partying, but not like hard drugs or anything. We were just big drunks. So we decided to rent a house about a mile off campus for the weekend so we could rage and not disturb anyone with our shenanigans. It wasn't really the best idea, because it ended up costing me like 3 weeks worth of food stamps for one night of fun. But that's beside the point. We were having an absolute blast, when suddenly my blood sugar dropped to like 0, and I begged everyone to go get me some food. We were living on microwavable food that entire weekend, and I needed something more substantial than stale microwave noodles. Since we were already pretty drunk, none of my friends wanted to drive me to the store, so I ordered an Uber. Yes, I know what you're thinking. What was I expecting? But I was too lazy to make the 20-minute walk to the store myself, and I was craving food. So I figured YOLO. A few minutes later, the driver messaged me to let me know that he was outside. I stepped out onto the porch. There were several cars parked down our long driveway, so I had to walk quite a ways to get to the road. When I finally saw him, I got into the front seat and told him the address. He didn't ask for it, just started driving, and I figured maybe he was new or something. I was also wearing headphones and listening to music, so I didn't notice that he didn't ask me for my address until we'd driven about 5 minutes without speaking. Are we there yet?" I asked, to which he replied, almost. And then he took a turn onto a side street that looked oddly familiar. I took my headphones off to better hear him. I don't think that's the way to my apartment complex," I said. Then he turned onto my childhood street. I immediately sat up straight and asked, "Wait, which way to your apartment is this way?" "I grew up on this street and moved away 5 years ago." The driver didn't reply. He just kept driving until he stopped in front of my childhood home. I opened the door and said, "Thank you," before running inside without even bothering to get my stuff from the back seat. I raced to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I was pale as a ghost and my heart was racing. Still, I had to calm down. My friends were going to freak out if I didn't come back and explain what happened. They probably assumed I'd passed out from low blood sugar or something. So I went to find my phone, grabbed my stuff, locked the apartment, and headed back out. I opened the Uber app to write a review and was shocked when I realized I hadn't left a tip. I quickly added one and decided to leave some feedback. As I began typing, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around to see the driver standing there. I backed up against my car and he loomed over me. "What did you say?" he asked. I froze. Was he trying to mug me? Had I left the door to the apartment unlocked? My mind was racing, but before I could speak, the driver continued. "What did you say in the review?" I hesitated. "Oh, nothing," I replied, still backing away from him. "I just meant that it was a pleasant ride, but how did you know how to get here? I mean, I put my address in the app and everything. How did you know to come to my childhood home?" The driver leaned closer, his face inches from mine. "Because I've been watching you since you were 9, he said, his voice raspy and low. I screamed and pushed him. I don't remember what happened after that. Guess I must have run to the apartment and locked myself inside because the next thing I remember is my friend calling the police. Apparently, they'd gotten worried about me when I hadn't returned and had come to check on me. I explained what had happened and the cops agreed to send someone over to talk to the Uber driver. When I tell this story now, people always comment on how stupid I was for not locking the door to the apartment. But at the time, I didn't even think about that. I was too busy being scared of the creep who'd literally stalked me since I was a child, according to the police report. The driver denied saying anything inappropriate and claimed that I must have misunderstood his southern drawl. He also had no record of any kind of criminal activity, which is why nothing came of their little chat. I never saw him again, but I still wonder what his deal was. I'm almost certain that he lived somewhere on my street when I was younger, but I have no memory of him. Also, would it have been weird if I filed a restraining order against him? I mean, he admitted to stalking me, but he's not technically guilty of any crime. Ugh, it's so confusing. I just want to know what his deal was. I feel like this story has all the makings of a horror movie. Our protagonist is minding her own business, enjoying a night out with her friends, when suddenly something feels off. She ignores her intuition and gets into the car with a stranger. Big mistake. She should have known better than to trust a creepy guy in a car. And then the foreshadowing. The driver doesn't ask for the address, which is odd. And then he starts driving towards her old house. That's a huge red flag. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to put two and two together and realize something is wrong here. And then the final twist. The driver reveals that he's been watching her since she was a child. Talk about a plot twist. It's like a horror movie cliché, but in the best way possible. And the ending is perfect. The story ends with more questions than answers, leaving the reader to wonder what the driver's motive was and what he wanted with her. It's the kind of story that keeps you up at night wondering if there are creepy drivers stalking you. In real life, honestly, OP should have locked the door to her apartment. Who leaves a door unlocked when she's out drinking with friends? But hey, maybe that's part of the reason the driver knew she wouldn't be there. If Op had been home, she might have noticed the driver paying a little too much attention to her or acting a little too friendly. But by leaving the door unlocked, she showed a level of carelessness that made her vulnerable. And that's the kind of vulnerability that creeps like the driver prey on. Our next Reddit post is from Not Nice. I was visiting family in Nashville for Christmas. My dad drove me to the airport. It was late and an Uber would have been expensive. I'm young and in decent shape, so I wasn't concerned walking to the entrance by myself. However, as I approached, I noticed that the curbside pickup sign had been turned around to indicate that passengers should not walk to their vehicle. No problem. I thought I'll just wait under the covered walkway until the gate opens. As I stood there waiting, I noticed the same silver SUV repeatedly driving through the curbside doors and circling back to the front of the line. Each time it drove by, it slowed down, and the passenger side window rolled down to reveal a man inside looking at me. I ignored him and figured he'd eventually move on. But every time a car pulled up to the curb, the window rolled up and the car drove past me, then slowly circled back to the front of the line to do it again. After about 10 minutes, I texted my dad to see if he'd noticed the car, and if he could hurry up because I was getting freaked out. He replied that he couldn't see anything from the roadway, but he was coming to check on me. As he rounded the corner, I pointed out the SUV, and my dad sped up to get closer. As he walked up, the window rolled down, and the guy inside asked, "Can I help you?" Dad said, "No, thank you. My daughter was waiting here for a ride, but it seems like you keep driving her crazy. Can you please stop?" The guy replied, "I'm sorry. I thought you were my wife. I'll be more careful in the future," and he drove off. My dad gave me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, and then said, "That was weird. Let's go." Just as we turned to leave, the guy walked up to us and asked for another chance to apologize. He said his name was John, and he'd been watching me from a distance for a couple of months. He said he understood now that he'd made a mistake, but would I please accept his apology so he could put this behind him? At this point, I was angry, scared, and confused, so I snapped. I screamed at him, "What are you talking about? What have you been watching me for?" And then I burst into tears. John started to get defensive and said he'd only been watching me from afar, but my dad cut him off. "I don't want to hear another word from you. Get away from my daughter right now." He grabbed my hand and pulled me close. "Are you okay, honey? You want me to call the cops?" I shook my head and hugged him. "Thanks, Dad. I'm okay." Later that day, as I recounted the story to my mom and sister, I realized that the guy must have seen my dad and I in the parking lot and assumed that I'd be driving with him. He must have decided to wait for me at the curbside pickup because he thought I'd be alone. But instead, he waited an hour and a half for my dad to pick me up. Honestly, Op, if I were you, I would have called the cops. Sure, it was weird, but it could have been worse. What if the guy had done something more sinister? I can't imagine the nightmares you must have had after this incident. Kudos to your father for coming to the rescue. And those are our creepy things that happened in a car. And if you like this content, check out my podcast, where I publish the exact same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new videos every single day. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reading from the r/no that didn't happen subreddit, so let's jump into it. Please don't look in the trunk. This happened about 4 years ago. I was a full-time Uber driver at the time. My city was having a huge music festival. So I figured why not drive Uber during this thing? It could be fun. Fast forward to 4 a.m. after dropping off my last fare. I go to pick up a new passenger. He is only going about 2 miles, but it is during the peak morning hours, so the pay would be good for such a short trip. He comes back a few minutes later and tells me that I did an illegal U-turn and that I need to follow him to the nearest station. I believe that my passenger was involved in a gang and that the reason he booked an Uber was to pick up a hitman. I have no clue. All I do know is that the stuff in the trunk freaked me out. Imagine getting into an Uber and sitting in the front seat and watching a movie. If you want to hear more, I do post new videos every single day, so I hope to see you in another one of my videos. Bye. Then halfway through the movie, the driver has to slam on the brakes, throws the car in reverse, and then aggressively drives forwards again, almost swerving into oncoming traffic. You would definitely be asking questions. Like, what the hell was that? But then if the cops show up and they start asking you questions, then you'd be even more nervous. What if you were mistakenly accused of something? That sounds absolutely terrifying. I would be asking so many questions. But I am glad that OP is okay, and I hope they catch the person that was in their car. When the cops searched my trunk, there was a blue tarp and blood all over it. I guess that explained why my passenger was so adamant that I didn't look in there. Anyways, I haven't driven Uber since. That was crazy. I'd probably quit too, say okay, and follow him while trying to call dispatch to let them know that I'm being detained for no reason. No one picks up. At the station, the officer searches the car and lets me go. I still have no idea how long I was there. Finally, my phone gets connected to a dispatcher who tells me I'm free to go and to disregard the request for my vehicle information because it was a misunderstanding. Apparently, my passenger was wanted for questioning regarding a murder investigation. The men I saw were his accomplices. They tried to flag me down so that I could drive them to a different location. When the cops showed up, they got scared and ran off. And apparently my passenger left me a 5-star review afterwards. I get to his location, which is a popular place for those staying out late to grab some food. There's a bunch of bars and restaurants around there. Someone else says, "Wait, does this mean the Milwaukee Ripper?" And then our protagonist says, "Yeah, I think so." The Milwaukee Ripper is a serial killer who was active between 2007 and 2010 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He targeted women who were either prostitutes or drug addicts. Between 2007 and 2008, 8 women were found murdered in Milwaukee with similar characteristics. Their bodies had been mutilated and many of them had been decapitated. In 2010, a 9th victim was found dead in a shallow grave. DNA evidence linked all 9 killings together. However, despite numerous tips, the police have never caught the killer. I park and he gets in the car. He's being pretty quiet, so I ask if everything's okay. He looks down and says, "I have something very important to tell you." I'm thinking he's gone, asked me to pull over or something, so I just keep driving. He then tells me, "I need you to drive to the outskirts of town to an abandoned house on the left side of the road." I ask him what's going on, and he reassures me everything will be fine and that he also pay me well. I honestly wasn't too worried. I've driven drunk people home before, and this guy seemed like he had a lot of money. His demeanor was calm and confident, so I kept driving. About 5 minutes later, he tells me to turn right onto a dirt road. It turns out that this road leads to the exact location he told me we were going to. Men run away after seeing us reversing. I hit the gas and swerve around them, now on the wrong side of the road, driving as fast as I can towards the main road. I can hear the men shouting things behind me, but I can't make out what they were saying. I get back onto the main road and slam on the brakes. When I see a cop car behind me, yes, I know I sped away from the cops. I assume they want to ask me where I got those taillights or something stupid like that. I pull over slowly. I can see the old abandoned house with its porch light on in the distance. As we get closer to the house, there's a man standing outside holding a flashlight. This makes me feel a bit uneasy. I ask my passenger if maybe we should go back, as I do and want to be involved in any illegal activity. He tells me to just go for it, and that again, everything will be fine. We get close enough for me to see that it's actually 2 men, and they are both waving for us to come inside. At this point, I'm freaking out, start to panic and throw the car in reverse. The officer approaches my window and asks for my license and registration, so the police let me go, but no one has ever contacted me since. Down in the comments, someone says, "You never said what city this was in."
What?
And the op replies, "Milwaukee, Wisconsin." So yeah, I think I would quit Uber after that too. Welcome to my channel, where a selfish passenger gets left behind. Our next Reddit post is from a user. I was working for a rideshare company about 2 years ago. It was the beginning of summer here in Ontario, Canada, so hot and humid outside. I thought to myself, great, another person who opens the back door and doesn't close it properly. And he stands up, making it clear that he's not leaving. Sure enough, when I started driving, he wasn't in the car. I reported the incident to the company, and they investigated it. By blaming it on you, they don't have to deal with investigating what actually happened. I think it's a cop-out. That being said, in a similar situation, and you do have proof that the person was unteeing the car when you started driving, I would suggest just giving in. Give in. Let the person ride in the back seat and just take them to their destination. It's better than losing your account. And yeah, this definitely happened in real life. If Opie didn't have the footage, then the company would have been right to fire her. Their cars are old and all the drivers are contractors, so they can easily replace someone. What they can't replace is their reputation. If word got out that one of their drivers was kidnapping people, then they wouldn't be in business for long. They concluded that since I didn't physically harm anyone, it was my fault, not theirs, because I should have done a safety check before starting the trip. How do you think the company should have handled this situation? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, please hit the like button because it really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye. I ended up losing my account. I was very upset. I mean, yes, I could have done a safety check, but does it really matter if he wasn't actually in the car? Am I really at fault here? Update. There is no physical way that he could have gotten into the car without opening one of the doors. Both were locked and the windows were up. My car is small, like most rental cars are, and there's no room to squeeze into the back seat. There's also no way that he would have been able to open the door from the inside. There was a large gash on the bottom of the door, and it was impossible to open it from the inside. I did everything right, so why is it my fault? The company claims that it is policy that every driver must do a safety check before starting the trip, but I've never been informed of such a thing. And to be honest, I never even saw it in the driver agreement. I had driven for them almost 700 hours with no issues. All of my reviews were 5 stars, and I made sure to always do my pre-trip inspection. I even kept screenshots of the messages I sent to my passengers letting them know that I had completed my inspection. I had no warning that this would happen. And now I've lost my only source of income. It's all because this entitled jerk decided to play a game with my life. So I come to a stop, turn on my hazard lights and call the police while I wait for him to leave. Oh, this might have been an unusual situation, but I think you handled it perfectly. You were nice, polite, and respectful to this guy, even though he was clearly trying to harass you. Even though you felt threatened, you never yelled or cursed at him. You didn't put yourself in danger by continuing to drive with him in the back seat. You did everything right. The fact that he wasn't in the car when you started driving is just a crazy coincidence. Whoever said coincidence was lying. Coincidence is a myth. Everything is caused by something. Every effect has a cause. Nothing happens by chance. There are no coincidences. And I know that this isn't exactly a deep quote, but I just love this scene in the movie The Big Short. He takes a few more pictures, makes a few comments about how hot and humid it is, and eventually plops back down in the seat with his head resting against the headrest. Then he starts laughing hysterically and tells me to keep driving. Confused, I ask, "Why did you get in my car if you knew I was already driving?" To which he replies, "I wanted a ride." Then he starts mocking me, asking if I really believe that I didn't pick him up, pointing out that I must have been distracted and that he thought I would just drive on. He also said something along the lines of, not all of us are out to get you. Some of us just need a ride. Why did you try to scare me by stopping the car and calling the cops? At this point, I'm livid. I tell him to get out of my car now. He continues to mock me for a few seconds, but then gets out of my car and runs off. So I look in my rear view and side mirror and see a man sitting there with his face down in his hands. Looks up at me and starts waving frantically. Now, I don't want to scare this guy or make him feel uncomfortable. So I roll down my window and yell, "Hey buddy, I didn't see you get in my car." He looks up and yells back, "I wasn't in the car when you started driving, was I?" So I say, "No, you weren't. Sorry, but I can't continue driving like this." Then he says, "Oh no, that's fine, just drive on." So okay. But how am I supposed to drive without you getting out of my car? He then starts yelling at me, saying that I should just drive on, that he'll be fine, and that I shouldn't worry about him. So I start freaking out a little bit, yelling at him to get out of my car, but he refuses. Instead, he just pulls out his phone and starts taking pictures of me. I had just dropped off a fare and was heading to my next pickup. As I'm driving, the app glitches sometimes, and it will show that a rider has been picked up when they have even actually gotten in the car yet. This happened again. I didn't think anything of it and carried on. The fare would have been less than $2 because we're only going 2 blocks, so I figured I would get another one after dropping this person off. Well, I got halfway to my drop-off when I heard a loud creak from the back seat. Now I'm absolutely freaking out because I don't know what this guy is doing. I pulled over as soon as I could and went through my camera footage to check. Yeah, I think it's time for an update. So, Ope, what happened after this? Did you get your job back? As for the company, I think they just don't want to deal with this type of situation ever happening again. But Opie, what are your thoughts? Do you think that you did the right thing? Do you think that it was your fault?